Calaroga Shark Media.
Happy Monday, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news, a daily briefing on stand-up comedy, comedians, and the comedy industry. A sentence the algorithm loves. Arsenio Hall was on Conan O'Brien. They started talking about the worst person who ever lived, Jay Leno. Arsenio Hall said he was relieved to be welcomed into Conan O'Brien's studio because the previous evening he had spent time with Jay Leno. Those two have done a few shows together. Arsenio Hall told Conan, "Last night, me and Howie Mandel arrived in Beverly Hills to do a benefit for abused animals with Jay Leno." Yeah, Jay's like, what a horrible guy doing a benefit for abused animals. Now, I'm not sure what this benefit was because Jay Leno, the worst person who ever lived, he's not going around going, "Hey, everybody, look at me, how cool I am." He's just doing benefits. Now, I did find this story from 2019, I think it is. Yes. And back in 2019, Jay Leno was at an event called Standup for Animals. Back in 2019, the worst person who ever lived said, "In these divisive times, there's one thing that brings all people together, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, no matter who you are, and that's animals. I mean, all humans just have a need for animals. They help cure people, they help us have fun, they put us in a good mood, and here's a chance for us to do something for them." And Jay Leno, he's the worst, right? Anyway, Arsenio says, "So last night, about 8 o'clock, I'm thinking, get to bed, get up tomorrow, do Conan, and I'm looking at Jay Leno in this green room. And I don't keep up with all white folks' business, but I do remember that y'all had friction. You may recall Jay Leno was the host of The Tonight Show, and then Conan hosted it for 5 minutes, and then Jay Leno came back. If you listen to this podcast, you're probably familiar with the story, so I will move on." Arsenio said, "I thought about it. I'm like, whoa, I hope Conan doesn't hate me because Jay's like a big brother to me. And we fought too. Me and Jay were like Cain and Abel." Conan O'Brien said, "Water under the bridge. This is going to sound so corny, but I'm so happy with my life and I get to do all the things I want to do. And honestly, don't think about any of that stuff." Is Dollywood closing? Now, no one thinks it is except Bert Kreischer, who said this on a podcast with Luke Combs. Bert Kreischer and Luke Combs were discussing the difference between fame and celebrity and which country star fits into each category. Bert Kreischer asked Luke Combs, "Hey, have you ever met Dolly Parton?" And if he had visited the theme park as a child, then Bert says, "It's one of the best theme parks in the entire world. I'm so sad it's closing. It's a theme park with a thumbprint, and that thumbprint is Dolly. It is authentically Appalachia. The topography of the park is very hilly, and so even with large crowds, you get a good workout, and all the food is Appalachia. And so the smells are unlike any other theme park, plus the rides are awesome. It's such a great park." Now, you might be like, "John, why'd you say Appalachia and not Appalachia?" Well, as I have learned, in the central to southern region, people tend to say Appalachia, while in the north, where you Yankees live, you people from New York City, say Appalachia. So I'm trying to be correct. I may have made things worse and should have probably just said Appalachia. Luke Combs said she definitely stayed true to her East Tennessee roots. She's always been a huge proponent of the region and has installed that spirit in Dollywood. You know what? I'm going to call out friend of the show, Scott Beckett. Scott, help your Yankee friend pronounce words. Shoot me a note. Text me, bro. Newsweek ran a fact check. The fact check is Dolly Parton's Dollywood theme park closing permanently? They report Dolly Parton's theme park, Dollywood, had to close early, just days into a new season, in a development that sparked confusion online. The park had been due to close at 8 p.m. on Monday, March 16th, but according to an update posted on Instagram, it closed at 5 p.m. The fact check by Newsweek says Dollywood has not been closed permanently. It was shut for a few hours. It is possible that Bert Kreischer was wrong. Mark Norman's talked to the LA Times. They were curious about, at the beginning of Mark Norman's special, a tape goes into VCR. In case you missed it, and I did, the tape is labeled Best of Gay Porn. And the LA Times asked the very important question, were there any other working titles for that tape? Norman said, "No, my dumb friend edited it and put that in himself as a little Easter egg. He thought it'd be funny, so I had nothing to do with that. I was a big skateboarder in my youth, and I told him I wanted to tape in a VCR like an old skate video, so that's what he did. Thanks for catching it." They were also curious about Mark Norman throwing his fist in the air from time to time. Is that a tribute to Rocky? Mark said, "I don't know where I got that from. There's really no story behind it. I just got pumped up to do comedy." The LA Times asked, sometimes when comics become parents, their material goes straight to, "Kids say the funniest things, but yours still feels pretty horned up and not overly kid-heavy." Mark said, "That's news to me. No, I was conscious of that. I didn't want to be the, 'Aw shucks, dad, kids are so crazy' comics. I appreciate you noticing that. I don't know about the charged up part, though. You know, Louis C.K. is the best with that. He has a ton of kid stuff, but it's still, throwing your kids in a dumpster and all that. So that was kind of my North Star." They were curious about all of Mark's projects. He said, "I'm a weirdo and I like to work. I used to be a janitor and I used to move furniture. So podcasting and stand-up is not so bad when you talk about having a job. It is a lot, and I have no free time, but I don't mind it. I hang out with my two friends. We do a pod together each, so that's how we get to hang out now. We monetize it, so that's something. And then the stand-up, I actually just love doing it. Love of the game. If I wasn't doing it like during COVID, I wanted to put a gun in my mouth. I felt like I had no self-worth. I just started drinking every day and doing drugs. Comedy gives me some meaning, which is kind of sad, but that's how I'm wired. If I have nothing to work towards, I'll just collapse in on myself. They asked him about what's standing out with the newer comics coming up. Another good question, he says. I think comics are chasing going viral. I get it, though. Everybody wants the followers, everyone wants the views, but they're not really chasing good jokes or quality comedy. Let's say that's a big thing, but it's not even the young comics' fault, because you hear the clubs say stuff like, we need a comic with a lot of followers or we won't book you. So they're scrambling to get followers, but I'm old-fashioned and young comics are probably going to make fun of me, but I think the cream tends to rise. So if you're killing, you're writing good stuff, and you're getting up, the right people will notice you eventually. I think the old guard, like Louis C.K. and Seinfeld, these guys are all very against the internet. They're like, get off the internet. And I'm saying, no. Clips sell tickets. Both extremes, the young and the old. I think we need a little bit of readjusting towards the middle. Coming up at noon Eastern today, the results of Comedy Survivor. As I speak to you right now, into your ears. I have no idea who was voted off. I think I know, because I look at the Facebook group sometimes, but I don't actually know yet. I didn't produce the episode yet, but it'll be out at noon Eastern today. Out today, if you need something to watch, Joe Dombrowski's Dad on Arrival, available via early access on the 800-pound gorilla. I'll also encourage you to watch Last One Laughing UK on Amazon. One of the comedians on there is Diane Morgan. She's currently also starring in a Train Railways, is that redundant? Train Railway? Could you have just said railway? Leave it in. Train Railways inaugural safety video. It is called Travel Safe with Diane Morgan. She said, at first I thought it was a mad idea asking me because I thought, am I the right person for this? And then I thought it'd be an interesting challenge to do something like this. 2 people every single day are getting injured. I had no idea it was that high. So don't run down a platform, whatever you do, or try to throw yourself between the doors. Diane's trying to work out more. She said, I went through a phase last year of running, but then when it got really dark and cold, I stopped. Amen, sister. Johnny Mac had a terrible, terrible winter for running, but it's still 40 degrees out. If it ever gets warm again, I promise you I'll run. Even bought new shoes. Diane says, I'm so busy throughout the day, it's difficult to find a time when you can go, but I really need to start doing something. Maybe I'll start doing yoga at home or something, or lifting weights. That's meant to be good, isn't it? I like this Diane Morgan. I find her very funny. I don't find her the worst person to watch on TV, if you know what I mean. And she says, I'm starting to get to an age where I just hate anything modern as well. She may be perfect. Noah Gordon Schwartz will be launching a weekly comedy series tracking the craziest elements of the new trend of prediction markets. You may know Noah. He wrote all 5 seasons of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. He's hosting The Spreadsheet, 12-part series on YouTube in April. Each episode will track the week's most volatile prediction contracts across pop culture, sports, and global affairs. Noah says social media first allowed people to voice their opinions about anything. Now prediction markets actually allow people to try to make money off those opinions. Or, sometimes there's some things that happen 5 minutes before the markets open or 5 minutes after the markets close, and there's some sort of international thing, and there's some trades, and, somebody just guessed well and made a ton of money. That's been happening a lot lately. So maybe you could talk about that stuff. Shut up, John. Okay. Let's see what's happening at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. Melbourne Arts says Sammy J's Hero Complex is one of the most memorable comedy shows they've ever seen. 5-star review. It's about Sammy J's lifelong obsession with the comic strip character The Phantom, and it is described as a heartwarming hour of constant grinning, chuckling, and laughing, punctuated with revelations that may just blow your mind. Sam Nicoresti's Baby Doomer. Chortle describes it as, who knew a show about finding the perfect 2-piece skirt suit would be so uproariously funny, life-affirming, angry, dumb, insightful, and political all at once? Baby Doomer at the Westin until April 19th. And that is your comedy news for today. Coming up at noon Eastern, the results of Comedy Survivor. See you then.